sketching cubics. So a cubic function has highest power of 3 in its equation. So it might look something like y equals x cubed, y equals minus x cubed, y equals x cubed plus 2, y equals x plus 1 times x minus 2 times x minus 4. And these are all cubics because their highest power of x is 3. Even in this one, when you multiply all the x terms together, you'll get an x cubed term. So how do we sketch them? So we're going to look at sketching a few different ones. So we're going to look at our basic one, y equals x cubed. And that's just going to look like this, where we start from down here, goes through the origin, and comes back, like that. Y equals minus x cubed is the same, but reflected in the x-axis. So instead of starting from the bottom left, we're starting from the top left and coming down, and we get that. So then we can have cubics that look like this as well when they're factorized. And to sketch these, we need to get all the x-intercepts by making all the factors equal to 0. So if x plus 1 equals 0, x would be minus 1. If x minus 1 equals 0, x would be 1. And if x minus 3 equals 0, x would be 3. So that tells us our x-intercepts. So we get minus 1, 1, and 3. And what we need to check is if we multiplied all the x terms together, would we get a positive or negative value? So we've got a positive x multiplied by a positive x multiplied by a positive x gives us a positive x cubed. So we know the graph finishes going upwards, and now we can just finish off our cube. So when we have all the terms in a cubic, it's going to look something like this. So it finishes going up. So we start from the back, and it cuts through, and cuts through. Meant to cut through all those points there, and we get something like that. What about y equals x plus 1, 1 minus x, and x minus 3? So again, we find the x-intercepts. So we get minus 1, 1, and 3 if you made each one of those equal to 0 and solved it. So same intercepts as the last one. So how is this one going to be different? So now we look at multiplying all the x terms together. So we've got a positive x multiplied by a negative x multiplied by a positive x. Well, positive times a negative times a positive is going to give us a negative. So this function is actually going to finish going downwards, not upwards, and we can start from the back and draw it, and we just get the same thing but going down this time. What about something like this? X plus 1 squared, x minus 3. So if we solve each one of these for x to be 0, so x would be equal minus 1, and x would be 3. So we're looking at the sign of x as well, minus 1 and 3. So it's a positive x squared, still gives us a positive, so positive x squared still gives us a positive x multiplied by this positive x is going to be positive. So this graph's going to finish going up. It's going to go through 3, but what happens here? There's only one more intercept, and that's because this one is squared. So if we get in a cubic one that's squared, we're actually going to get a touching parabola at that point. So the graph, let's tidy this up. So the graph's going to come down, but it's got to be a touching parabola at that point because that point has a squared parabola there. And we get something like that. So let's have a look at just some more basic ones with a couple of modifications. So we've got y equals x cubed plus 2. So that's just the basic one plus 2. So the basic one, remember, went through the origin, but by having a plus 2, that's going to shift the graph up 2. So it's going to go through 2 instead. Y equals minus x cubed minus 2. Well, minus x cubed was upside down, and minus 2 is going to shift it down to minus 2. And this was the upside down, minus x cubed, so it looks something like that. What about x minus 2 all cubed? Well, here we've got our basic x cubed, but we've added this minus 2 inside the cubed. And if we get that, this actually shifts the graph right by 2. Minus, you'd almost think it's shifted to the left by 2, but it's actually going to shift it to the right by 2. So instead of going through 0, it's going to go through 2 on the x-axis. And we're going to get something like that. And finally, y equals x plus 2 all cubed. So if minus 2 shifted it to the right by 2, plus 2 is going to shift it to the left by 2. So it's going to go through minus 2, and we're going to get something like that.